Hello, I am so excited that this is another episode of the Vibe Coding with Steve and Gene podcast. I am Gene.
And I'm Steve.
The goal is to share with you what we've learned while when we were writing the Vibe Coding book, which is coming out on October 21st. We learned so much. It was so fun to write. It's even more fun to read. And the goal of this podcast is to share what we've learned, the exciting adventures we've been on, and share about some of the insights we had, some of which made into the book and some that didn't. And Steve, I thought this time we should talk about who this book was intended for, because it's broader than we thought.
Yeah, it's not quite as broad as everybody, though. So we should you know what I mean? Truthfully, we would love to write a book about vibe coding for everybody someday. And we seriously considered doing it this time, right? Because it's close. The AIs are getting close. We're not quite there yet. You still have to know some programming, right?
Yeah.
So we're going off programming and programming adjacent audiences. So let's walk through who those are.
Yeah, the first and foremost are working developers, software engineers, ML engineers, and AI engineers. And we start off by saying, really kind of evoking the ideas that we had in programming is hard. There are no winners, only survivors. That programmers, we spend so much of our time on things that don't actually matter. You, Steve, want to talk about that?
Yeah, boy, Gene and I have been programming for decades, and honestly, it used to be easier, right? Programming's never been easy because you're always trying to do something that's just a little bit harder than you can. But you would think, right, that over the last 30 years, it would have gotten easier and easier to produce software. You just feel because of all the technology improvements and the performance improvements and the usability improvements and the things that we've learned about what works and what doesn't, you'd think, right? But instead, what Gene and I found is that stuff has gotten noticeably harder, like a lot harder, right? What do you think, Gene?
Oh, absolutely. And it was actually so cathartic. And one of so many of the comments I appreciated, whether it was on LinkedIn or on the YouTube comments, was people resonating with the fact that, wow, programming is hard. And for me, it was cathartic to be able to have you say you feel the same way, not just mediocre developers like me. This is something that so
Yeah.
many of us feel.
It puts people out of the industry. It makes people stop programming. It made me stop programming. And that's a big deal, right? Because people love programming. It's a lot of fun. It's very satisfying. And so something really has to have gone terribly wrong to have beaten that joy out of us. Right. And I mean, we talk about it in the book a little bit, right? And just look how laughably hard it is to build like a web app these days and how many frameworks you have to like bring into play and choose from, and how their interdependencies are often pretty tangled, and some are compatible and some aren't. And it changes all the time. And that's just for a web app, right? And there's a gazillion kinds of programming out there, Kubernetes, Terraform, you name it, right? So we talk about it in the book, a lot of specialization, right? A lot of environment setup, a lot of configuration has become out of hand, right? And these are the things that are not fun parts of programming that put people off, right? They get people out of it. So actually, it's probably worth calling out as another audience that we're really interested in bringing this book to is folks who gave up programming because it just became too much of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and that's something that I've been getting a lot of feedback on is like, oh my gosh, I used to program all the time. And for various reasons, I stopped. And this has reawakened the joy of programming. And I think implicit in this, in the audience, is people who tried AI coding, but remain skeptical for various reasons. They tried it once and the results weren't so good. Or they actually spent a couple of days working with AI and got like very suboptimal outcomes. And so I think this book is really designed to help describe why the rewards of using vibe coding and AI, but also more importantly, the how. And so in the next episodes, we'll be talking about the vibe coding loop, the specific things that you need to do to get good outcomes, finding your objective, help decomposing the tasks, right? Starting that conversation, having the AI generate the code, verifying it, right? And then repeating that. And then all the ways that you change inner, middle, and outer development loops. I think the book is really meant to help persuade, for those skeptical developers who might have tried vibe coding before, to give it another shot, because the reward is definitely out there in our experience.
That's right. That's right. And there are a lot of people out there. We see it. A lot of people who really have given it a real effort, a real genuine, the old college trying to get AI to work for them. And it just didn't have the outcomes that they want, right? We see it online. People are like, they want actually to have the AI work really well for them. And they see the posts and they're like, but, right, it doesn't ever work for me in my enterprise environment or whatever.
In fact, Steve, you actually described some of the interesting letters you got after you posted the Death of the Junior Development post. People who you hadn't heard from a while, right? Who had a very strong reaction, often negative, to your claims that you were making that AI is going to change development forever. Can you describe what they were saying to you?
Yeah, Gene, we're touching on something that's so foundational and fundamental. It's like, it's the core argument of whether we even matter or not as people, right? And this is why people get so up in arms about it, because they believe in human exceptionalism. They believe that we're special and that we can do things that computers will never be able to do. And so it's really starting to rankle us that the ones that we felt especially proud of, like math and programming, are the ones that are first to go, right? Because of the bitter lesson, if you've never read it. It's a very short essay from a long time ago, but it's still true today, which is that scaling will solve all challenges, all knowledge work challenges, right? So like, this is coming and you've got to get on board with it. But we're in such a weird spot right now, Gene, because it doesn't work the way people expect it to. And it's like, you've got this electric hammer that's kind of shaky and kind of whatever, and you're trying to learn how to pound nails real fast with this electric hammer, and it keeps hitting you in the face and pounding holes in the wall, whatever, right? And people are like, this hammer's just not working. But the reality is, it's a hammer. It's not like an automatic robot that's going to go and build your house for you. It's just a hammer, right? The AI is. And getting your head around how far it can think with that context window, that's really difficult for people to get their heads around. And it's why people are struggling and failing with AI right now. It's because they think it either works or it doesn't. They think they're going to sit down, they're going to get a right outcome, or they're not going to get a right outcome. And then there's no gray area for them. But the whole thing is gray area. It's all gray area. You are now a chimera. You're a hybrid AI human being doing knowledge work, okay? You use the AI to get as much as you can out of it, and then you do the last mile yourself as the human, okay? That's just how knowledge work works now. And Gene and I want you to give it another try if you've tried it before. We empathize with you as a programmer if you've tried this, because hell, I'm pretty good at it now. And I, like, last night had it fix a bug wrong, and it was really convincing. And I sent it to my colleague and he's like, yeah, it misunderstood the bug and did the wrong. They will always screw up. They're like people, right? And so this is just like a foundational, fundamental thing that Gene and I are going to talk about throughout this show. But what we're begging you to do is just recognize that it's not your fault. It's normal to sit down with AI and have it do the wrong thing and not behave the way you wanted it to and let you down and be kind of disappointed. It's normal. Go in with low expectations, definitely. But then what you'll find is very quickly is, once you've set that baseline, once you've got all your expectations set up and you're coming in with the right techniques and the right mindset and the right frame of mind, and all the stuff that we talk about in the book, it's unbelievably powerful. It is, okay? And I know you want it to be. And what Gene and I are telling you is that it will be. It's just, there's a bit of skill involved, and you're going to have to, like, get over that hump.
Yeah. In fact, Steve, there's a category of things that people would tell you that you are actually on the wrong track, that, AI is, not going to work for programming. And it usually sounded like I had to do something big, make a complex change to a large monolithic code base, or I had to try to write a distributed systems problem, and it totally failed. And you had this really interesting reaction. It's like, here are senior people who are very empathetic. They often mentored junior people, right? And you noted this huge kind of contrast in, like, how nurturing they were for junior engineers who they would never ask, to solve these kind of very complex problems initially without a lot of help and handholding, and then dumping the same problem to an AI, right? And just laughing at when they got it wrong. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, like, getting the AI is like getting an intern. Simon Willison was the first one, I think, to observe this. It's this an intern shows up who's super smart but kind of crazy, right? And people aren't treating it like that, right? They're treating it, they're not thinking of it like a human collaborator, like a pair programmer collaborator. They're thinking about it as a tool where they delegate, and then it either gets it right or it doesn't. And if it gets it wrong, then the tool failed, and it's not your fault. It's the tool's fault. The AI got it wrong, right? That's just completely the wrong mindset, right? That's just utterly the wrong mindset to have. The mindset, I mean, that you have to have, and we talk about it in the book, is that you're on the hook to build something. You have a pair programmer collaborator with you, and you're going to give them small things to build up their confidence and build up your trust in them and build a relationship with this worker. They don't do any of these things. They sit down and their mind turns out, they don't think about it the right way, right? Which is that you have a collaborator now. And that's a really difficult hurdle for people to get over. I mean, people have been in the industry 30, 40 years, and they're just like, they don't get it. Right? They fundamentally don't get how different it is to work that way.
Yeah, in fact, so we use 300 words to hopefully make a very persuasive case for them to give it another try. And by the way, I want to latch onto something that you said, which is you build up trust in the technology. I compare the initial exercise that we did pair programming together back in August and how small the problems I gave it were, right? It's like, all right, start time and end time, generate the video excerpt, given a certain end time, extract the transcript. And they seem so small compared to the tasks I'm giving it now, right? So some of it is the model, but some of it was that my confidence and trust in that the AI can actually handle ever larger sets of tasks, allow it me to delegate larger portions of the task graph, right? So given an objective, we decompose it into tasks, and it was shocking to me when I was analyzing all the prompts that I used to write the tools in the final days of editing process, just how big my asks were compared, to how small my asks were back in August.
Yeah, I've noticed that trend too. Some of it is the models getting better. Cloud 4 is obviously way better than Cloud 3.7 was. Some of it is us getting better at prompting for sure, as because you get burned a lot. And so you gradually start adding riders to all of your build. Yeah, you start clarifying instructions. We also you also learn that the instruction following is squishy, right? Instruction following is maybe it'll follow your instructions, maybe it won't. And so there's this whole parallel thread of just like keeping an eye on things to see when and where has it stopped following your instructions, right? So you can get it back on track. There's a kind of a lot involved. And I think that we built up some muscles over the last, I don't know, year. It's been close to a year that we've been doing this vibe coding stuff since before agentic coding, since back when it was chat. And I think that maybe it has crept up on us. Like we don't know how much we've learned, right? But there's actually a lot involved. There's a lot of skill involved in getting this stuff right. And I think it's really subtle. It's really subtle things. Like a prompt that I wrote 6 months ago might be the exact same length as a prompt that I write today. But the prompt that I write today gets much better mileage, right? Because I'm careful to dodge in the prompt all the things that I know it's going to do wrong. Okay, it will. And by the way, don't do this. Okay, so that's just that becomes second nature. And when you sit down with an AI for the first time, you don't have any of those skills. You don't have any of those instincts. You have nothing. And that's why everybody's having so much trouble with it. Because you just practice makes perfect. You just you got to use it every day and learn how it thinks and how it works.
Yeah. Just to rephrase that, right? Some of the improved performance we can attribute to the model, right? They're just getting better and better, right? And in that task tree, the leaf nodes, the height of which the models can do, keep growing. But absolutely, I think a huge part you have to attribute to the learned skills that we've been learning and practicing for the last year.
And it's why our book is 300 pages. I mean, it's not a few skills; it's a lot of skills. I mean, it's a different way to work. I mean, it's like we say, you're a team lead, you're a head chef, you're doing a lot more at once. You're at a higher level of abstraction. You're elevated at the creation ladder. And the whole thing is just a little bit disorienting at first. You run into different kinds of problems. We have a whole chapter or a whole section on how we ran into completely different kinds of Git problems and Git workflows just because of the nature of the role that you're, all these agents. Yeah. So yeah, we get it. We get it. When you say all you see is a bunch of YouTube, successes, and it doesn't seem real. And it feels like this is all, and we also get that a lot of you feel like it's plateaued because you tried it with 3.7 and you tried the same thing with Cloud 4 and it still failed, right? And so you're like, well, it hasn't gotten any better. Or if anything, maybe some of you think it's gotten worse. We totally understand. And it's why we wrote the book. This stuff's not intuitive. It's not your fault that it doesn't make any sense. It's just a weird discovery that humanity has made. And we have to
Still good. Yeah. So that's software engineers, the audience. Then I'm just going to mention 3 other constituencies. We have the senior and principal engineers. We have technology leaders, and then return to coding. And yeah, I guess one that I love the comments from people who said, "Hey, Gene, my career track mirrored yours. I became non-technical. The only stack I work in is the PUI stack, PowerPoint, Word, and Excel." Right? I mean, yeah, and to see these people kind of roaring back, right, and starting to build things that they haven't built before. Yeah, oh my gosh, I can think of 5 people right now who are just building amazing things. One just open sourced something that he's never thought he'd finish. And he just posted last week. In fact, that might be a great guest on the show. Anyway, senior engineers, technology leaders, and return to coding. Steve.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've seen technology leaders adopting this more aggressively, I think, than the average engineer. Like it's skewed older, and we don't really 100% know why yet, except maybe CTOs have more free time to screw around with this stuff, right? I mean, that's my working hypothesis is that they've got a little bit more idle time to work with, right? And they're less critical path. And so they're not, not as worried about experimenting with AI in a situation where they could cause a big outage or something, right? But for whatever reason, I mean, this is really consistent. We're seeing CTOs, CIOs, heads of engineering, senior VPs, VPs of engineering, people, in engineering leadership roles, even if they're like individual contributor leadership roles, like principal engineers, but they may not be doing a lot of coding anymore, right? They're doing architecture. I got a few friends doing that right now. And they're all starting to do more coding too. They're all starting to come back, right? This is why our book is targeted at them. It's because they never really wanted to stop coding. They really didn't, right? It just became too much the ROI wasn't there anymore. But now that coding like has gotten 10 times easier, right, to get the stuff done that they want to get done, the ROI is back. And so these groups of folks are coming back out and they're programming again. It's really exciting. So we wrote the book definitely for them too. Senior leaders, technology leaders. Also, who was the other group that you had there?
Senior
Returning
technology leaders that return to coding.
people who people who retired, right? People who switched careers. A lot of people went into product management or other sort of tech adjacent type roles after a stint as a programmer, even though they really liked programming. And it's not because they wanted to like stop programming. It's just because the product management side of things kind of started taking up all of their time, right? But we're seeing all of these. I mean, like you can't go a day now without hearing a story about right somebody's marketing department or somebody's HR department or somebody's whatever non-technical department that solved a problem. Recruiting. I mean, I said the recruiting was yesterday, right? Where somebody's just like, you know what? I'm sick of the way stuff works. The software's not doing what I want. I'm going to build something. That's amazing. I mean, come on, that's amazing, and we're seeing it over and more and more and more. And a lot of these people are return to coders. Like they're people who they you know what I mean? They wrote a little Python program back in the day, or they actually used to be a programmer, and then they kind of switched, right? And it gives you this sort of like the confidence to know, how a program runs, you know how to run one and can see the output. I think that's why Gene and I decided that you need to have a little bit of programming experience to read our book.
Oh yeah.
That was the sort of the minimum baseline is you've done a little bit of coding before. It doesn't even have to be that much, and it doesn't have to be professional coding, but you have to understand the basic, like a compiler and interpreter and
Version control,
program, debugging, version control, things like that. We didn't want to have to go into all that, right? But if you've got a pretty good handle on that stuff, I mean, just the basics of it, like as a basic intro programmer, maybe you took, intro to programming in college or whatever, like that's enough for you to go and start vibe coding right now. Okay. Because you don't need to be a domain expert. You have a domain expert in your pocket, right? Which is the AI. And we're moving in a world where you use your pocket domain expert as far as you can. And then you go knocking on doors and find human experts to validate it all at the end. Right. But I mean, like seriously, this is bringing people back, and we're super excited to see them coming back.
Yeah, three things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, three things. To your observation that so many technology leaders are spending time vibe coding, getting back to coding. There is this one P at a super large GPU company who is like famous for his technology leadership. He has a number of teams reporting to him so that he can do more IC work, which means coding, which is just, yeah, everyone's sort of watching that with awe and amazement. Two is I just heard from a buddy of mine. He's a VP of architecture at a large financial company. I'm hoping that I can get his okay to share his story or even have him on. He sent me a text. I spent 20 hours with no sleep with a GitHub Copilot and Sonnet 4 and built a complete web app for something that my team estimated would take 12 months. 6 engineers and a UX person. The only thing left to do is deploy the containers and hook up Datadog. So it's going to production. I think so. Another reason I think is that there are things that are important for them or the organization where they know there's a faster, better way, and they care so much about it that they're doing it themselves. So it's not just coding on the side; it's actually building something for production use, which blows me away. I mean, Steve, can you want to react to that?
I mean, we're seeing it all the time. We're seeing it every day, more and more. And I know there's some skepticism, right? I know you're like,
Yeah.
well, the CTO built some prototype and showed everybody, and now they're bragging about it, and everyone's mad. I mean, like that's, obviously that pattern will play out too, right? Um, but what we're seeing is like we're seeing real stuff get built. Like no joke, like not just like somebody built something and then the engineers poo-pooed it. No, we're talking about non-engineering teams building things, then bring them to the engineering teams, and the engineering teams sign off on it. And in fact, this is one of the things that we think if you're a senior engineer, one of the things that we talk about in the book is that we think that your role changes a little bit because you're going to be so in such demand helping all of these other vibe coders. Yeah. So there's a lot of fun ahead, I think is what we're trying to say. There's a lot more collaboration. It's easier to talk to people inside of your company now because you have a common language. Like you can actually go to the AI and talk through things with the AI and understand the problem domain before you go talk to the human. And so now your mind meld is faster. All of these things are like what they're doing is they're dragging people back into the fray because they realize, wow, I can build again. Yeah. And have we missed any? We've missed a few groups, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll go to the next one, but I have to mention in terms of technology leaders and the people who are good at vibe coding. Oh man, does your organization need you more than ever? In fact, I'm so happy that we got this quote that we got approved for the book. Andy Glover, he's director of dev productivity at OpenAI. He was formerly in the same role at Netflix. And he said, one of my top goals is to get more of our developers using agentic coding to get everyone's productivity close to what we see in our best Codex agentic coding users. Right. So he's saying there's kind of two curves of productivity happening. You have the sort of like baseline curve, and then you have this one that's skyrocketing. And so if you are hiring as many developers as OpenAI, you care a lot about getting more people from the first curve to the second. And he's articulating that there are meetings happening all over the company about how to make sure that, more people, not on this curve, but the second.
Very specifically and concretely, he's saying that like a subset of the engineers there have adopted Codex, okay, which is an agentic coding tool like SourceGraph AMP or like Cloud Code. And the rest of them use Cursor, right, or whatever, right? And he's telling us that the productivity difference is so stark, so big, like he's thrown out numbers like 10x or more between engineers in his company, like his organization, that they're like now worried about performance review time. Like it's gonna be a problem. Don't take our word for it. Don't take me and Gene's word for it. We've got director of developer productivity at a big company telling us, right, that we're seeing 10x productivity speeds up for people who ditch Cursor. Okay, people who give up their IDE and they go and they use these terminal-based command line agentic coding assistants, right, to do their work. And I tell you, when I first heard about this in January, it's what, July now? When I first heard about this in January, that the Anthropic engineers had some command line tool that was doing their coding for them. Of course, as an engineer, the very first thing I thought was no, 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 right? It was just emphatic rejection, denial. There's no way, right? I mean, it was like, and then as soon as I tried it, I was like, oh, right, uh-oh. And so like, I don't know what else we can say. We're literally telling you that we're 10 times as productive. Everyone we know is 10 times productive. And we're hearing from random people on the street that their people are 10 times as productive. What is stopping you people from trying Codex or SourceGraph AMP or Cloud Code? And those are the only good ones. There's a new one, Cairo from Amazon. Yay, Amazon. They actually got on the bandwagon. Maybe they're doing something right. But look, there's only a few. If you're using an IDE plugin, if you're using Visual Studio Code, if you're using IntelliJ, like Gene and I are telling you that you are a dinosaur. You're a dinosaur now. You're an old-fashioned programmer who's slow. You're slower than the people around you. And I know that's not, you're not going to be super happy to hear that. And also, you know what's totally unfair about this situation, Gene, is that not everybody can benefit from AI equally right now. It's not distributed evenly. If you're working on a big monolith, if you're working on a giant monolithic, ugly legacy code base that's poorly documented and tangled and root is gone, you will have much, much worse results with AI. Your colleagues who have microservices and well-factored modular systems, because the AIs they work better with smaller problems, and a big monolith is a big problem. Fitting all of it, what it needs to know in the context window is already going to overflow the context window just by definition, right? So what it means is the future's here, but it's unevenly distributed. And you're, unfortunately, even at OpenAI, we found out that the ChatGPT monolith is still not doing as well with Codex and similar tools as the microservices teams, right?
Yeah. In fact, there's a great story from it was the OpenAI Codex team. So this is the one that runs remotely in its own kind of container environment. And there was a phenomenal quote they gave or in the interview that said there was some internal service that they ran internally that took off. So it ran on its own, and they decided it was so good they had to bring it into the ChatGPT monolith, which is apparently one of the largest on the planet. That has been undergoing hypergrowth for the last 3 years.
Mhm.
And the instant they put it into the monolith, suddenly productivity dived to the point where they're no better than anyone else working in a large monolith that you can't take time out to make architectural improvements for. One of the things that we talk in the book is like you need architectural freedom of action, right? As well, and you can't when you don't have that, you can't get fast feedback because even small changes you need to coordinate a potential with everybody.
I mean, like just briefly, I know that our podcast today isn't about this, but basically, like the cows are coming home to roost. Everybody for the last, I don't know, 20 years since service-oriented architectures came out has been kind of feeling this tension going back and forth between microservices and a monolith. Like at Grab, we literally tried microservices and went back to the monolith. Okay. Because monoliths have a lot going for them, right? There's just the one build and you can piggyback on them. Like there's no new packaging and blah, blah, blah. Like lots of reasons monoliths, people lean into the monoliths. We all knew it was going to bite us someday. We all kind of hoped that AI would come in and help us with the monoliths. But what's actually happened is AI came in and is helping us, but the monoliths are preventing it from helping us. So everybody who's stuck with a monolith, and almost every kind of has one monolith and a bunch of microservices, right? Oh, you're all in trouble now. Like this is going to be a theme that you're going to have to break up your monolith. You have to start on it now because otherwise it's going to be an anchor that drags you to the bottom of the ocean while all of your competitors do break. I
And
know
the
that's not
value
our
is
topic today, but modularity is so important now.
we will talk about that more for sure. And we even talked about that in the vibe writing episodes. So the value has never been higher as measured by NK divided by T and sigma, right? Number of modules times the number of experiments you can do per module, divided by the cycle time per experiment and sigma, the risk reward payoff.
Sigma's high too, though, so the uncertainty is really high.
That's right. Risk reward, uncertainty, and so forth. Hey, but before we leave technology leadership, I just want to say for anyone who's good at vibe coding, there might be a new calling for you, right? Because of what Andy Clever at OpenAI talked about, right? If you have to level up thousands of engineers, their skills in vibe coding, if you are good at vibe coding, right? Maybe your highest best use isn't working on a particular product, but is helping your fellow engineers get better at it because that will improve productivity for everyone. So I think in every kind of technology revolution, the people who are really good at that technology, they go to the most interesting places. So we talk about also product owners and UX and infrastructure engineers and the level 99 heroes logging back in. Steve, which one of those do you want to talk about?
Well,
Product
I think we
owners.
should talk about product owners, right?
Yeah.
Like, as a product, I mean, like historically, you've had to get your thing built by engineering. That's how it's where you've outsourced your work for your entire career. And that's changing now, right? We're seeing product owners getting more directly involved with the actual creation of the software. The very first see is PRDs go out the window, product requirements, those great big thick specs with pictures and screenshots and stuff, because you don't need it because you have a working prototype now. You can make a working prototype that actually like does like a version of what you want the engineers to build. And that's a lot clearer, right? It's a lot clearer for you as a product owner. You'll be thinking about things that you hadn't thought of when you were doing it all on paper, obviously, right? Because it's right there, you're building it. We're seeing this more and more, and it's not like a joke. It's not a toy. Like it's real. It's like it's the way software is being created is changing. And we're seeing it's not just product owners, it's like ex designers and technical writers and everybody else who's kind of around the IT, all around the kind of the sides of the development are now getting actively into the development. I think a lot of engineers might be feeling a little bit, what's the word? Threatened by that. But I actually think that you need to think about it as, wow, you're a trained engineer. You just became that much more valuable to all these people who are just getting their feet wet with engineering. The people who are just learning how to do vibe engineering, right? Vibe coding and build things. Of course, they're going to want to come to you to get spot checked. And that's what we see, right? That's what we see. No, you shouldn't be threatened by this, but it's super exciting and it's super exciting. And we think that all of you folks who are kind of around the edges of development and in product owners, product ownership, what else? UX designers, who are some of the other roles that we're talking about?
Yeah.
QA.
Oh yeah.
Everybody who's involved in some way, right, in the production and the deployment of this software and the debugging of it, troubleshooting, you can all participate now. You should actually, I'm going to just time out. I'm going to do a real quick plug for SourceGraph Ant. If you're using Cloud Code or using Codex, they're great tools. I love them. I pay for them, whatever. But SourceGraph Ant has team features like public threads, leaderboards. You can see what other people are working on. And there's this community aspect to it that you just never would have thought would, you know what I mean? Like, but it really does bring the whole team together into the programming exercise. We're seeing more and more of this now. So anyway, give it a try. But one way or another, you should definitely consider vibe coding. Right? As an engineer, consider vibe coding with your non-engineers. Just do it together, right?
Oh yeah.
Put stuff together. We see this. I've been calling it the new two pizza team. You know, like you get a bunch of domain experts together, and you get a Jeff Bezos two pizza team, a group of say 8 or few, experts that are going to go solve some problem in your company, right? You can make those like ad hoc right now, and you can go solve problems in your company just by pulling the experts together because you all have AI to help you.
Yeah. In fact, you mentioned tech adjacent and product owners. Yeah, I think there's a feeling that I've had in the past when you are trying to get the engineering team to do something, right? And it can be done, right? You can see it in your head, but you just weren't familiar with enough of the code base to make that contribution. In fact, my buddy, the VP of architect, when he heard 6 months, 12 months with 6 engineers and a UX person, he was so motivated to do it. He spent 20 hours coding, right? And got most of the way there. I think that feeling is like when you're being held hostage by the engineering team, right? And you can't get the team to do something that's really important. I think this changes that dynamic, and not because the engineering team has ill intent or whatever, right? It's priorities, maybe not communicating enough or something. But any place where you want an engineering team to do something and you just don't make the cut, suddenly that threshold of you being able to do it is that way. It just opens up so many possibilities. Very FAFO indeed.
In fact, I would go so far as to say that if you're not doing it, you're starting to become obsolete. Right? If you're a knowledge worker, if you're a product owner or a UX designer or a business owner, or you're in advertising or sales, marketing, whatever, and you're not actively using AI to start helping build the next generation of software in one or another and working closer with engineers, like if you haven't jumped on the vibe coding bandwagon yet, then you're going to get replaced by people who have. Right? And I'll give you one concrete example. All right. UX designer, Daniel Marks, he's a guy at SourceGraph, and he's always been pretty technical, but come on, he's our UI guy, right? We love his designs. And one day, right, a couple months ago, instead of sending us a ticket, with an example of a UI thing that was broken and he wanted it changed, he just vibe coded it and he submitted it to us, and it was fine. He knew enough about the code. He'd been poking around in it forever, making little tiny changes around the corners because he can change things like styles and things. Well, now he has the ability to change the whole UI. And so he did. And so did that threaten us as engineers? Did all the engineers go, he's taking our job from us. We're supposed to be doing the UI. You're supposed to be staying in your lane. No, we were like, we never want to see the UI again. You just do this from now on. We'll just
no more screenshots,
right?
no more.
You don't want to work with somebody anymore who doesn't do the work themselves. Instead comes to you and tells you to do the work. That's just so old school. So all the tech adjacent roles that basically used to come to engineers and say, do X, Y, Z, like your first stop should be trying to do it yourself at this point.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Just have to riff with you on that. I told a story to you back in April. I was flying down to San Jose for the IT Revolution Forum event. And I was sitting on a plane working on some stuff. The airplane, the airline Wi-Fi kind of choppy, and I had a fellow nerd also frustrated because of the Wi-Fi cutting off. So we close our laptops and the question comes up. So what do you do? And I'm like, I'm an author, researcher, writing on a book on vibe coding. And that was the first time I actually used that word in public. And the way his eyes lit up, it turns out he was director of design of a data analytics company. And he told me over the next half hour how excited he was about a Reddit aggregator that people could subscribe to. And so he said, I used to code 10 years ago, and now I'm doing it myself. And he's spending every weekend waking hour working on these things, but I 100% confidence that he's taking those skills and then using that in his design capacity, inside of his organization. I just think that's so exciting. And so empowering, and allows a whole new horizon of things that normally would not have gotten done to get done. It's just really exciting. Go UX people, go designers. The last
You forgot about Kent Beck.
Oh, the level 99 heroes logging back in. Oh, yes. You wrote some of the most badass programmers on the planet are logging back in and doing amazing things. Well, might you start with Kent Beck? I'll share with
I
my
got
own
to
Kent
meet
Beck.
the legendary Kent Beck at Gene's ITRF forum in April. I was really excited. And he had caught the bug in a big way. He had just caught the bug, the vibe coding bug, right? So he was just running around going, I feel young again. And these youngsters have no idea what they've unleashed. And he was coming up with all these really colorful metaphors. He's like, it's like going down a ski slope, but on a toboggan, right? He's like, you're staring at it, but you're never really in control, and coming up with all these colorful ways to describe it. The important thing was he's coding again. He had stopped. He had just given up for all the reasons that we talked about. The coding's gotten harder. The ROI isn't there anymore. It's just a big pain in the butt. And he's back. He's back. But he's not the only one. I mean, we're seeing like just crawling out of the woodwork. Everybody who just hung up their hat and right all over the place. Elizabeth
Henderson,
and
Adrian
who else?
Cockcroft, formerly at Netflix.
Adrian Cockcroft. Oh, there were a bunch of people at this forum, and they were up on stage and they were vibe coding for us and showing off their projects, and we had to drag them off the stage literally because they wouldn't stop. Because with vibe coding, there's always it's going to work on the next try. It always does that. Anyway, it's really heartwarming to me to see so many people getting back into programming. Now, a lot of you are probably like, the last thing we need is more really good programmers on the market when there's no jobs. Right. But I mean, truly, Gene and I really believe that this job situation right now in the programming market is completely temporary. And that what we're seeing is a pivot and a shift. And we're already starting to see an explosion. Come on. NVIDIA's got 750 software engineer positions open or something like that. And that's just one example. I think once people have this figured out, and once this vibe coding thing starts to settle into the organizations and people can actually like move forward, and there's going to be more software roles by 10x than there ever were before, and it's going to bleed way out beyond trained engineers into the new engineer, right, that we've been talking about, who have other skills to bring to the table. I'm so excited for it. I'm beyond excited.
And by the way, I got to spend 3 days with Kent Beck in Tokyo, and it is really amazing to hear what he's working on. He's building stuff in Go, in Rust. He's resurrected, if he ever actually gave it up, building a small talk interpreter. He's building distributed databases. I mean, it's just really amazing. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Kent Beck, he invented extreme programming. His contribution
effectively pair programming in a sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's one of the inventors.
He wrote JUnit, absolutely legendary in our field. Anything else we can? So yeah, we talk about all the various constituencies who are going to benefit that we hope to speak to in this book, and convince them that vibe coding is rewarding, exciting, and makes possible all the FAFO benefits that we talk about.
I think I just had a realization. I could be wrong. We'll have to talk to Kent about it. But I think that vibe coding is so similar to extreme programming. That's why Kent picked up that. Right? Because like it's a pair programming exercise with the AI. Like fundamentally, there's a collaboration thing there that Kent just like he vibes on it and has for decades. I don't know. We should chat with him about it. But I actually think that if you're an extreme programmer, you're a pair programmer, you're an agile programmer, you're going to probably get working with AIs a little bit better than the average person.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the YouTube comments that we got was bring Kent Beck on. So I think that's a great idea. And by the way, before we leave the topic of of pair programming, I just want to mention that we pair programmed the entire book in the last, basically 80% of the book in the last 45 days of writing. And it just says how important it is, like when you're creating something, co-creating something, like how efficient pair programming is, right? Because we never had to branch. We're always sort of integrating in really, really small loops. And I think that's what made the vibe writing process so magical. All right.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I really wish that I had somebody to pair program with. Like, are you a golfer, Gene?
I am not.
So if you're a golfer, one of the classic problems is finding other people to golf with, because golfing by yourself is not. But I don't have anyone to pair program with, to vibe code with. I pair program with the AI, but what I want is 2 humans and 2 AIs. We don't have a lot of experience with that. We have experience with it with writing, but not with actual coding. And I'm sad that I didn't get a chance to find somebody to do that with and learn more, because we probably would have had more to say about it in the book.
Hey, we should do some of those together. I'll volunteer, and maybe we'll put that out there.
Absolutely. But I'm talking about 2 or 3 engineers trying to build something big together where each of them is contributing a piece of it, vibe coding. Like, I just don't have a lot of experience with that yet.
Oh my gosh, dude, that would be
Like,
so fun. In fact, maybe let's
maybe
put
we
this
could
request out
grab,
there. If you are interested in a mob programming session, right, where we build something together, that would be so flipping cool. Let's do it, Steve.
I think we've covered some really amazing topics today. I'm so excited to see all these people coming back into coding and getting into coding. And like, this book is for you.
So good. So part one is why vibe coding matters. Part two is theory and first steps. Part three is the practices that you have to integrate into inner, middle, and outer development loops. Part four is scaling up. So we'll be talking about all of those in future episodes, and you can pre-order the book on Amazon, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you in
Thank
the
you.
next episode.